I received a call from my husband, Lucas, in the middle of the night while I was on a business trip abroad. His words hit me like a truck. "Hey, Lean. I want a divorce." I froze. I barely managed to say anything. Deep down, I'd always feared this day would come, but I never thought he'd mention it while I was so far away. "What do you mean? Can you explain it properly?" I asked, my voice trembling. Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "You probably didn't notice, but I have a mistress. She's younger, prettier than you. We even have a son together. So, I want you to divorce me so I can be with them." I remained silent. So he continued as if he wanted to make everything clear. "Oh, and I already sold the house and the car." He paused, clearly waiting for my reaction. I took a deep breath and replied calmly and briefly, "Okay." On the other side of the line, there was stunned silence. "Huh?" Lucas muttered, confused. Perhaps he thought I'd start crying or beg him not to leave. But I didn't. I had been prepared for this possibility for a long time. His words didn't make me tremble as he surely expected. A few days later, when I returned home, things were already different. Lucas was at the airport waiting for me, and he looked very nervous. But let me tell you a little about myself before I get to that. My name is Lean. I'm 35 years old and a housewife. I grew up in a normal, middle-class family. Since I was a child, I loved learning Italian. So I started taking classes from elementary school. In junior high, I also discovered I had a talent for English. During high school, I had the opportunity to stay with a host family in Italy. It was at that time I started dreaming of working at an international company. To make that dream a reality, I enrolled in the business program at one of the top universities. While studying, I spent time abroad in Italy and worked very hard to achieve my goals. Finding a job after graduation wasn't easy at all. But I was thrilled when I landed a position at my second-choice company. My family was very proud of me. My sister even told me, "Lean, you're amazing. We're so proud of you. Take care and do your best." That support meant everything to me. However, starting my new job was tough. It was much more demanding than I expected. Although the company treated its employees well, the standards were incredibly high. I was only in my early 20s with little experience, so I often had to work long hours. My co-workers and supervisors were always supportive. And most importantly, I found joy in doing the work I had always dreamed of. After working hard for several years, my efforts were finally recognized. I started receiving more important assignments. And my friends used to say things like, "You're on your way to becoming a successful businesswoman. You're such a cool and strong woman." But despite how people saw me, I had a weakness for cute things. I loved collecting merchandise of my favorite characters, and I even slept with plushes. I always wanted a pet, but my busy job made it impossible. That's why on my days off, I liked going to cat cafes to relax. At work, I maintained a professional and serious image, never showing my softer side. Maybe because I was so busy, I craved comfort in those little things. As I got older, many of my friends started getting married and having children. At weddings, people used to tell me I should get married soon too. I'd laugh and say, "I'm too busy with work." The truth is, I wasn't interested romantically in anyone at work or among my business contacts. And I didn't have time to meet someone new either. I wondered if I was destined to stay single forever. Back then, I thought that was okay. I liked focusing on my career, and it didn't seem like a bad way to live. One day, I went to another friend's wedding. As always, I cheered on the couple. But this time, I felt a little uneasy. I was already over 30, and if I wanted to get married, I knew I needed to start looking for someone soon. Later, the reception moved to a bar. I found myself sitting alone at the counter with a drink in my hand, watching the other guests laugh and the bride and groom smile shyly. Suddenly, a voice interrupted my thoughts. "Are you alone? Can I sit here?" The voice was soft and pleasant, and it took me by surprise. "Oh, sure," I replied as I turned to look at the man. He was about my height, which is somewhat tall for a woman. He seemed younger than me. His face was average but in a pleasant way, though not exactly what I'd expect from someone with such a nice voice. "Are you here for the wedding?" he asked. "Yes. I'm a friend of the bride." I replied. I'm also a friend of the bride. From high school. The groom invited me to have a drink together. I nodded. And we started chatting as we drank. Wow. You work at that international company, he remarked. Surprised. I've heard of that company. It's incredible. For someone like me, who's just an employee at a small company, it feels like you come from another world. The man introduced himself as Lucas. And I found him very easy to talk to. Before we parted ways, we exchanged contact information and started seeing each other after that. Lucas was 3 years younger than me and worked in sales at a small company. He had a kind personality, was a great listener, and knew how to give sincere compliments. I really enjoyed spending time with him. After a few dates, Lucas confessed that he had feelings for me, and I happily agreed to go out with him. Although his annual income was less than a third of mine, I didn't mind at all at that time. The more time we spent together, the more adorable Lucas seemed to me. I didn't see him as someone super impressive or completely reliable. And perhaps that's why I never felt let down by him. On the contrary, I loved his gentle and sincere nature. He would say things like, "I'd love to try your cooking." I couldn't resist and happily cooked for him. After dating for about a year and a half, Lucas surprised me with a ring. I love how you're always so amazing but also have this cute side. If it's okay with you, will you marry me? He asked. It took me by surprise, but I was thrilled. I accepted the ring with a smile. Thank you, Lucas. Let's take care of each other as husband and wife, I told him. Lucas was over the moon, practically jumping for joy, and his happiness made me laugh. Afterward, we met our families to share the news. Lucas's parents were kind and simple people, and they gladly blessed our marriage. My family also supported me, and my parents told Lucas to take good care of me. My sister, who was already married, teased me in a low voice. Seems just the type you'd pick, knowing your weakness for cute things. But don't spoil him too much. Okay. I laughed and replied, I know. Thus began my life with Lucas. Since we were starting from scratch, I decided to buy a condo. It was a big decision, but I thought it would be a good investment for the future. I chose a slightly larger place, considering the possibility of having children someday. I believed our happy married life was about to begin. But reality hit me hard. Lucas didn't know how to do any housework. Lucas had relied on his parents, especially his mom, for everything until the day of our marriage. I tried to be patient and told him, Lucas, now that we're married, we should share the household chores. If you don't know how to do something, I can teach you. But Lucas frowned and replied, What? Now that we're married, isn't it your job to handle the housework? I looked at him seriously and replied firmly, No, Lucas. Housework is the responsibility of both of us. I have a very busy job, too. It'll be a problem if you can't even handle the basic things. With determination, I said, Come on. Get up. I'll teach you how to use the washing machine. I took the time to teach Lucas the basics of housework. At first, he didn't seem very interested, but gradually, he started doing some cleaning and laundry. However, his efforts were always half-hearted, and many times I had to redo most of what he did. In the kitchen, he was a total disaster, so I decided to take charge of preparing meals in advance. I didn't want to discourage him, so I made an effort to praise him even for the little things he did. I thought encouraging him would help, but instead of improving, Lucas started doing less and less. He knew I would always end up doing it, so he began to take advantage of my patience. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. Lucas, you have to stop depending on me so much. Learn to do housework properly. I'm busy with work, too, and I have business trips. You have to take care of things, too. Lucas frowned and replied, What's wrong with you? You've changed since we got married. You're always nagging. You make good money, so if you're going to complain so much, why not hire someone to do the housework? I was stunned. Yes, I earned a decent income, but mindlessly spending money could quickly deplete our savings. Despite talking to him about this several times, Lucas refused to change. Then, roughly a year after we got married, I came home to find Lucas sitting pale in the living room. Lucas, what's wrong? You don't look well. I asked. He sighed and admitted. My company is filing for bankruptcy because of the recession. I'll be out of a job next month. What surprised me was that, although Lucas had been working overtime more often lately, I had no idea his company was in such bad shape. So what are you going to do? Have you started looking for a new job? I asked him. I'll think about it later, he replied. I'm tired and stressed. I just need some time. I decided to give him space, thinking he needed time to process everything. But after his company closed down and he became unemployed, Lucas spent all day playing video games. He didn't do any housework. And when I came home late, I'd find him sitting in front of the TV, completely absorbed in his games. This continued for months, and my patience wore thin. One day, I finally told him, Lucas, haven't you rested enough? Don't you think it's time to start looking for a job? He barely looked up. I want to think carefully about my next job, he replied. You know, at my old job, they were just using me. Next time, I want a job where I can accomplish something meaningful, like self-actualization or whatever. Although I wanted to tell him he was talking nonsense, I knew I couldn't force him to work. So, even after his unemployment benefits ran out, I continued to support him. One day, while he was glued to his video games, I sarcastically said, if you like games so much, why don't you try streaming? You could earn some extra money. To my surprise, Lucas's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. You're so smart. Lean. Thank you. It's an opportunity. I have a good feeling about this, he said, brimming with enthusiasm. For someone who hadn't done anything for months, it was a sudden change. And I wasn't sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing. Then you'll need a PC and streaming equipment, he added casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I blinked in surprise. I don't have any savings, I replied. But he insisted. Please, would you buy it for me? Reluctantly, I bought everything he needed. Deep down, I thought this would fail and he would finally realize that he needed to get a proper job. But a few months later, things took a surprising turn. Lucas became popular as a game streamer under the name Ha. To my astonishment, he even started ranking on the charts. Online fans left positive comments, saying things like his voice was very pleasant and he was funny at how bad he was at the games. He managed to attract both male and female fans and even partially covered his face on camera, which drew attention. Of course, he never mentioned that he was married. See, I told you I could be successful when I tried. The world finally recognizes my talent, Lucas declared, full of himself. Despite his success, he didn't show an ounce of gratitude for all the support I had given him or for buying the equipment that started it all. Still, I calmly approached him. Lucas, I'm glad things are going well for you. But don't you think you should contribute some of your earnings to our household expenses? It's been a while since your unemployment benefits ended, and I've been covering everything. Lucas looked at me as if I had said something absurd. Why should I? You earn enough to handle the living expenses. Let's keep our finances separate. I was dumbfounded. True to his words, Lucas kept all his streaming income to himself. By now, the kind and considerate man I had dated was long gone. He had become completely selfish and dependent on me. Around that time, I bought a luxury car, the car I had always dreamed of owning. I only drove it on weekends, but I treasured it. One day, Lucas casually said to me, "Hey, let me drive your car." I raised an eyebrow and replied, "You work from home. You don't need a car for streaming. Why would you want to drive it?" He insisted. "We're married, so it's fine. Come on. Let me drive it." Eventually, I caved and handed him the keys. Even though I didn't have a good feeling about it afterward, Lucas started going out whenever he wanted during the weekdays while I was at work. His popularity as a streamer continued to grow, and he gained a large following. He also began to live a flashy lifestyle, dressing in expensive designer clothes. I felt sad seeing how much he had changed, but since we were still married, I continued our life together, hoping things might improve. When we entered the 5th year of our marriage, my career was thriving. I was given more responsibilities at work, and I often had to travel abroad for business trips. Sometimes I was away for a few days, other times for up to 4 weeks. Whenever I came home, The house was a complete mess. Like a garbage dump. Lucas spent all his time locked up in his room streaming. He still depended on me for everything and never helped around the house. We barely talked anymore. And I found myself wondering why I was still married to him. It was then that I started gathering evidence for a divorce and making plans. One day, I told Lucas I'd be going abroad again the next day for a 3-week business trip. Take care, I said. He didn't even look up from his phone. I went on my trip and immersed myself in my work. On the 11th night of my trip, I received a call from Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Do you know what time it is here? It's midnight. Then he dropped a bomb. Hey, Lean. I want a divorce. I froze. All I managed to say was, I'd suspected this might happen someday. But I never thought you'd mention it while I was on the other side of the world. What do you mean? Can you explain it properly? I asked, trying to stay calm. Lucas chuckled. You probably haven't noticed, but I have a mistress. She's younger and prettier than you. We even have a son together. I didn't say anything. So he continued. I want you to divorce me so I can live with my mistress and our son. Oh. And I already sold the house and the car. He sounded so confident. As if he expected me to break down. But I didn't. I simply said okay. What stammered Lucas was, huh. He must have thought I would cry or beg him to stay. He had no idea I'd been mentally preparing for this moment for a long time. You want a divorce? Okay. I said calmly. There's a completed divorce paper in the living room drawer. You can sign and submit it yourself. Lucas was shocked. You had the divorce papers ready? Well, thanks for making it easy. Goodbye then. Enjoy being the woman your husband left behind. Then he let out a laugh. But I replied, sure. Well, I'm going back to sleep. Bye, Lucas. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I called my sister and asked her for a favor. Then went to bed and slept soundly until the next morning. I focused on my work and kept busy until my trip ended. Finally, it was time to go home. The business class seat my company provided was so comfortable that I fell asleep during the flight. When I woke up, I stretched and thought it had been a good nap. No jet lag for me this time. I was ready to get back to normal life. After landing, I collected my luggage and headed toward the airport lobby. When I reached the exit, I suddenly heard someone shout, Hey, Lean. I turned to see Lucas running toward me, looking panicked. Oh, why are you here? I asked, surprised. I don't remember asking for a ride. Lucas didn't answer directly. Instead, he started ranting. His words tumbling out. What have you done? The car. The house. It's all your fault. I took a step back, startled by his strange behavior. I don't understand what you're talking about. I said calmly. Can I leave now? I'm tired. He flailed his arms, expecting me to understand. I filed the divorce papers after you told me to. I began. I see. I replied, brushing past him. And you barely pay attention. Are you even listening? Lucas snapped. When I went home to meet the real estate agent about selling the house, there was a lock on the door. I couldn't get in. Then, when I tried to use the car, there were wheel locks on the tires. And I couldn't drive it. I tried to call you, but you didn't answer. You blocked my number. I let out a small sigh. Yes, I blocked your calls. So what about it? Lucas's face turned red with anger. You did it. You put the lock on the house and the wheel locks on the car. How did you do that when you were abroad? I shrugged. I asked my sister to take care of it. His eyes widened in surprise. Your sister? Yes, I said, keeping my tone light. You said you sold the house and the car. I remember. But when my sister checked, both were still there. So I guess you were just lying. Probably just getting estimates from agents. Lucas's face turned even redder. And he stammered. Well, yeah, that's true. But I was about to sell them. I couldn't help but sigh as Lucas continued to rant. No, Lucas. You couldn't have sold the house or the car. Even if you had tried. Both are in my name. And all the important documents needed to sell them are at my parents' house. Lucas froze. His face blank. What? He murmured. Did you really believe someone could sell a house or a car by saying I'm selling this without being the legal owner? Obviously. They need proof of ownership and proper documentation, I said, shaking my head. Lucas seemed completely stunned, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. You've always left all the complicated paperwork to me during our marriage. So of course you don't know. You don't even understand something so basic, I added with a hint of disgust. Lucas's face twisted in frustration. If you knew they couldn't be sold, why did you put locks on the house and the car? Because of you. I couldn't get into the house or use the car. It was horrible. I sighed again. Why would I let someone who cheated on me, has a mistress, and demanded a divorce have free access to my house? Same with the car. They're in my name. So I secured them. I can't believe you're doing all this just because I couldn't sell your stupid property. You're not that cute. That's what I hated about you. Always acting like you could handle everything yourself. So arrogant for a woman. I remained calm and replied, "Oh really? Then why did you marry me in the first place?" Lucas scoffed. "Obviously. For your money. The fact that you worked at an international company and earned good money, that was the only reason you were worth marrying." His words dripped with malice. But they didn't affect me. I just looked at him, thinking about it. There wasn't much benefit in marrying you either. Lucas's face turned red with anger. "Don't act so high and mighty. I'm the one leaving you. My mistress is much better than you. Hundreds of times cuter. And she even gave me a son. Doesn't that make you feel inferior? She's a better woman than you think." I couldn't help but smile slightly. "Better than me? Huh?" I replied. "What's so funny?" Lucas snapped, still smiling. I reached into my bag and pulled out a photo. "Is this your mistress?" I asked, showing him a picture of a young, attractive woman in her 20s. Lucas's eyes shifted nervously when he recognized her. You knew about Miriam," he stammered. I gave him a sweet smile. "Of course. You're not the only one who wanted a divorce. I've been gathering evidence for a while." "You're so careless. Lucas. Didn't you realize the dashcam records the inside too?" I said, watching his face turn pale. But I didn't stop there. "Once I saw when you met her in the dashcam footage. It was easy. I hired a private investigator to gather more information. It didn't take long for the evidence to identify your mistress." Lucas's face froze. I added, "I was a little surprised to discover she was already pregnant. Though." He stood there, stunned, before finally blurting out, "Don't do anything to her. She's been through a lot after giving birth. She's young, has no money, and didn't even know I was married." I raised an eyebrow, feigning concern. "Wow. You're really defending her. You must love Miriam very much." "Of course I do," he said firmly. "She's pure sweetness and my soulmate. I'll protect her and our son no matter what." While Lucas was preening with self-righteousness, I silently took out my phone and played a video. It was dashcam footage from my car, showing Lucas driving with a very pregnant Miriam in the passenger seat. "Thanks for taking me for a drive today," Miriam said sweetly. The food was delicious, too. Lucas's face in the video lit up with pride. "You're so good at saying thank you. What a good girl," he said smugly. "I want to marry you soon." Miriam pouted and crossed her arms. "Really? Then hurry up and get up and divorce that old hag. I want you to be my husband before the baby is born." "All right." Lucas's voice in the video reassured her. "Just wait a little longer. I'll take care of everything while she's on her business trip abroad. Then we'll be together. You and the baby will live comfortably with the money from selling the house and the car." I paused the video and looked at Lucas. "So, Miriam didn't know you were married?" "Huh. It seems to me she's quite aware of it." Lucas was pale and sweating. Before he could say anything, I dropped another bomb. "About her being pure. Maybe you want to look closer." "What are you trying to say?" Lucas shouted. I pulled out a stack of photos and scattered them on the floor. Lucas's face paled with each picture he looked at. What is this? Who are these men?" The photos showed Miriam with different men, holding hands, entering hotels, and even getting prenatal checkups with a man who wasn't Lucas. "That's really Miriam," I said calmly. "She targets popular streamers for relationships. Let me guess. You started as a streamer, and she was just another fan." Lucas froze, unable to speak. He fell to his knees, clutching one of Miriam's pictures. his face white with shock. Looking at him with pity, I said in a soft, almost sympathetic voice, "You really are something else, Lucas. You plan to raise a child that might not even be yours." I said this flatly, staring at Lucas. He muttered to himself, as if in shock, "No. Miriam told me I was the only one. This can't be true." I looked at him without emotion. "Can I go now? We're basically strangers at this point. There's nothing left to discuss." Suddenly, Lucas snapped out of his stupor and started yelling, "If you hadn't shown me all this, I could have continued being happy. How cruel can you be? Because of you, I can't trust anything anymore." I couldn't help but sigh, feeling nothing but annoyance. "That's not my problem, Lucas. Do you even hear yourself? Whatever. Do what you want," he sneered. Then said, "Fine. Even if I divorce you and leave Miriam, I'll still be fine. I have over 3 million followers as a streamer. And now I'm earning way more than you. Too bad for you. You're losing a famous streamer as a husband. Serves you right." At that, I smiled sweetly and said, "Why don't you check your phone, Lucas?" Lucas froze for a second before grabbing his phone with a smug look. As he unlocked it, his face went pale. "What is this?" he said, seeing over 1,000 notifications. "What's going on?" He frantically scrolled through his screen, his expression growing more horrified with each second. Finally, he looked at me, trembling. "Lean, you didn't," he murmured. With the biggest smile of the day, I replied, "Oh, I did. I exposed everything online, how you were married, had a mistress and a son, and how horribly you treated me." Lucas let out a yell that echoed through the airport lobby, causing people around us to stare. He completely lost control. "What have you done? My reputation, my followers, my whole career is ruined. Look at these messages. They're calling me the worst man in the world. They say I betrayed everyone." I casually lifted my phone, tilting my head playfully. "Oh, by the way, this whole scene is being live-streamed. Wow. Look. Over 500,000 viewers. They're loving it." Lucas's face contorted in panic, and he lunged for my phone. "Give me that." But it was too late. His horrible words and meltdown were already there for everyone to see. As he crumpled to the airport floor, consumed by rage and despair, I calmly walked past him and toward the taxi stand, feeling lighter than I had in years. Afterward, Lucas faced intense backlash online. His entire career came crashing down. His success had been built on the image of a sweet, single man with a charming voice that attracted many female fans. But now, that image was completely shattered. The fact that Lucas had been secretly married shocked his female followers, who felt betrayed. But the scandal didn't end there. The news of his mistress and child caused even his male followers to turn on him. They called him a cheater. And the story became filled with juicy details. He hid his marriage, cheated on his wife, and then they found out the child might not even be his. It became a trending topic online, attracting the attention of people who had never even heard of Lucas before. He was now the center of attention on the internet, but for all the wrong reasons. Although Lucas posted a carefully worded apology on his social media, the backlash didn't subside. His subscriber count plummeted, and he finally had no choice but to stop streaming altogether. Sometime later, as I was leaving my office building after work, I saw Lucas waiting for me. His face was streaked with tears as he begged, "I can't take it anymore. I can't even go out without people staring or making fun of me. Please, help me. You're the only one I've ever truly loved. Let's get back together and be husband and wife again." I looked at him coldly and said that if he continued to harass me, I would call the police. That was the last time I saw Lucas. Later, I heard that the child Miriam had wasn't Lucas's after all. When the truth came out, it caused even more trouble, more drama, and the two of them split up. I didn't let either of them get away with it. I demanded compensation from both. Lucas used the last of his savings to pay me, while Miriam had to borrow money from her parents to cover her share. As for Miriam, she tried to pressure the real father of her child, another streamer, to marry her. But he rejected her completely. With no other options, she moved back in with her strict parents and is now raising the child there. I sincerely hope the child grows up healthy and happy despite everything. Lucas's situation only worsened. After paying me, he was completely broke. The companies he had worked with sued him for damages for tarnishing their image, leaving him with nothing. When he went to his family for help, his decent and responsible parents cut ties with him, ashamed by his behavior. Now, from what I've heard, Lucas lives alone in a rundown apartment, a shadow of the person he once was. Even knowing all this, I don't feel any sympathy for him. As for me, I've returned to my single life and am completely focused on my work. I couldn't continue living in the condo I shared with Lucas, so I put it up for sale. It's a fresh start, and I feel lighter than ever. It turned out that property values had gone up in the last few years, so I made a good profit when I sold the condo. I also sold the car Lucas and Miriam had been using to an acquaintance. With that money, I bought myself a brand new car. Once everything had calmed down, my sister, who had been a great help, told me, "Good job, Lean. Just think of him as a dog that bit you. Forget about him and move on. But next time, don't choose a man just because he's cute." Okay, she was right. This whole experience taught me something important. I think I'm done with marriage. I realized that living for my work suits me much better. Now I'm living in a new place, a high-rise apartment I recently purchased. The best part is, this apartment allows pets. Now that my work life has calmed down, I plan to finally get the cat I've always dreamed of having. From now on, I want to focus on the things I need to do, take care of myself and live a positive and fulfilling life.